And that is where you're running with your dog attached to a harness at your waist, and then the dog is on a line running out in front of you. And my goodness, those guys are going fast.
Wow, that's amazing. And I always have to remind myself to not put on my like resting face, but that's a neutral face. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dog Mom Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Robert Forto. He's a dog trainer, a podcaster, a dog musher who lives in Alaska with 35 sled dogs. Yes, you heard that right, 35. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about his experience. He's been, dog mushing since 1994 and podcasting since 2009. So obviously with a lot of experience and I'm sure a lot of stories. So thank you for coming onto the show, Robert. It's nice to see you.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about 35 sled dogs in Alaska. How is that like? What's the day-to-day? I have 3 dogs and I can't imagine adding 32 more.
It is definitely a full-time job. Yes, we are dog mushers up here in Alaska. If your listeners, watchers are not familiar, think about movies like Togo or Iron Will, all about dog sledding. That is what we do here. I teach at the local universities, dog mushing at University of Alaska Anchorage and also at Alaska Pacific University. So every winter we're teaching new college kids how to get out and explore the wilderness. But yeah, 35 sled dogs is a lot of work. They are all, except for 2, Alaskan Huskies, which are purpose-bred dogs that are specifically bred to do this lifestyle or this sport. They all kind of stay outside and do their thing. They love it out there. They love to work. They love to hang out with their buddies. And yes, it is almost a full-time job in of itself.
So the 2 that are not Huskies, what are they?
They are Siberian Huskies. So they are the purebred, typical looking Husky dogs.
Okay, amazing. And like 35 dogs, I'm sure they have a hierarchy going on. The ones I've heard that, the leaders are always at the front. And do you rotate who's at the front, the leaders, or do you kind of have everybody knows their place, basically?
Yes, we train our dogs to run in every position. And as you said, the leaders are up front. They are the 1 or 2 dogs that are listening to the commands from the musher, from the person who is standing on the sled. And then everybody behind them, it's very similar to like American football. So thinking about your superstars are the leaders. So like Tom Brady, the quarterback type thing. And then you have your playmakers like the wide receivers or the running backs right behind them. Those are called the swing dogs. And then you have a bunch of team dogs, depending on the size of your team. And then at the very back of the team, right next to the sled, are the big brute dogs. Think about the offensive linemen in football. They're the beefy, goofy, kind of jockey type dogs. They're the ones that are doing most of the work.
They're carrying the team. Okay,
they're carrying the team.
So you're standing in the back. Are you standing or are you sitting?
We do have a sit-down sled, but primarily we're standing on runners that are about as wide as a cross-country ski. So a little bit less wide than your foot.
Got it. So you're in the back, you're commanding, but you're saying the lead dog in the very front is listening to your commands. So you really have to, if you're going fast, you have to really project your voice and have them listen to you.
Yes, it is surprising that you don't have to talk very loud. Like I can say Ruby hike or Ruby G or haw, left or right or whoa or stop or anything like that. And just for perspective, every 2 dog section is about 8.5 feet long. So if you have an 8 dog team, that would be 32 feet from the lead dogs to the sled. So every dog is another 8 feet or so. So if you have a 16 dog team, that's 60 some feet away from you or where the lead dog's nose is, I guess you would say.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah, because I'm just
Yes.
thinking, you're going and the wind is blowing, and if the wind is blowing that way, you gotta, let
Right.
your dog know. So that's really cool. What do you feed your dogs out there?
Uh, that is always a story people love to hear. It's very interesting. It cost us about $2,000 a month just for dog food. So a lot of dog food is literally just going in one end and out the other, if you know what I mean. We feed a combination of kibble, very similar to what most other people feed. We feed a pretty high caliber kibble that has a lot of protein and a lot of fat. And then we mix that with raw meat and water and some other supplements like electrolytes and that sort of stuff. And we mix it all up, and it looks very similar to a very hearty beef stew, kind of a soupy, stewy type meal. Every dog gets about a pound of kibble and a pound of meat a day. So we feed them twice a day. So quite a bit of meat and
Yeah.
kibble every day. And then on our training runs or on our races, we feed all sorts of stuff. We feed salmon and beaver and all sorts of stuff as we're going down the trail.
Right, right. And is there like a particular season that, dog mushing season for a certain months?
Well, it's definitely a winter sport,
Mhm.
particularly on the sled. So we're heading into winter right now as we're recording this towards the beginning of November. We don't have any snow yet in Alaska,
Mm.
but it's 25 degrees, so getting chilly. But winter is our primary season, but more and more people around the country and around the world are doing dog mushing events on dry land. I just went to the World Championship dryland races in Wisconsin last week, and there were people from 23 different countries that were there. 200 and some odd people were there with dogs doing their thing, and they were doing bike joring and scootering and carts. So all types of equipment that they were using with their dogs, and they even did canicross. And
Where in
yes,
Wisconsin was that? My husband was just in Wisconsin last week, which is why I had to reschedule you, was he was
yes,
back home
I
for
was,
a funeral. So, yeah, where was
yes,
that?
I was in Minocqua, Wisconsin. So it was
Okay.
probably about, I don't know, less than an hour from the UP of Michigan. So pretty far up into the state.
I see, I see. Yeah, that's amazing. So, how does that work on like dry and like no snow and dry land? Like what type of wheels or how is that like? Because I can see it on snow, it's just like
Yep.
sleds. But
Yep.
how does that
Oh,
work on
that's a
dry
great
land?
th- that's a great question. There are three primary classes, if you will, in that sport. As we mentioned, bike joring, it's your typical bike. Most people are using mountain bikes, and then
Mhm.
they hook up they call them a gang line. So that's the line that uses to attach your equipment to the dog. So that attaches right about to your handlebars on a
Mhm.
kind of a bungee looking rope. And then that attaches to the harness of the dog. And the harness is different than a pet harness. A sled dog harness attaches to their back very close to their tail. So kind of a
Oh.
full body harness that kind of leans in and, gets that full body. So they're using mostly mountain bikes for that. They do use scooters. So think about the old school kid scooters with bigger wheels. So like regular bike size wheels on more of a scooter setup that you would see a little kid using, but definitely higher tech for sure. And then they have a rig class, and that is an ATV or a three wheeler without the frame or the motor. It's just kind of a metal thing with wheels and
Yeah.
pretty heavy, but they're hooking up 3, 4, 6 dogs to it and going well over 20 miles an hour.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I think if you, kinda take it off the snow, you can expand the sport to a
Yes.
wider audience and to a bigger geographic location. So you could be racing in Arizona or in, California or Texas or something, you know? I'm not sure how the dogs will fare out there in that heat, but, at least you could be traveling with your pack and going to these locations and racing as well.
Yes, when we were at that event, they had participants from Mexico. Right
Mm,
outside of Mexico City is where those guys were based. People from Brazil, Argentina, Chile. So not places that you would think would
mm.
be snow type climates, were there and competing very well, winning medals at this world championship. So that is truly, I think, the future of the sport, because not only can it be done just about anywhere, but even at our local races, we've had dogs enter that are golden retrievers or Labradors or, just regular pet dogs. There's even a lady, I believe she lives in Minnesota, that runs on a bike jaw class with a little dachshund, so a little teeny dog, and she does very well in that little dog class. And I had her on our podcast a while ago, and heck of a story for sure.
Yeah, that was my next question is like, once it's off the snow, then it could just be any breed, really. It's not limited to the, Huskies or the Malamutes. It can just be any breed who is suitable for running and can have
100%.
that broad chest probably is needed for pulling the sled. So maybe not like a greyhound, but other breeds as well.
Right. Definitely a take-home message there is make sure that you check your dog out with the vet, make sure they're healthy and their bones are formed and all that. You don't want to take a little puppy out there to do that. Make sure that everything is good on the vet side, as they say in human exercise. Make sure you're cleared by your doc before you do something strenuous.
Yeah. Do you usually, for like a new dog, how long do you wait before you kind of put them in the harness to go?
We typically wait till they're about 6 months, and then we put them in a little puppy harness and they begin to pull light loads. And funny enough, we'll start off with just pulling like a piece of wood behind them or something like that. Then we'll grow up to like a spare tire, like a car tire. And then they will start running on very small teams at very low speeds, just to get them used to working in harness, as they say. And as they grow up, as they get stronger, as they get more confident, we'll add them into bigger teams with a little bit faster or better trained dogs. And then, as they say, we're off to the races.
I mean, that's so interesting. I know some people who are, in the sport of, showing their dogs or agility, but I've never really talked to anybody who put their dog in the sledding sport. So that's really, really fun to hear. So did you start the dog mushing first and then you kind of added the podcasting into it? I know you're also a dog trainer. So tell us a little bit about that, career ebb and flow that you've had.
Okay. It all really goes back to the husky type dogs. I got my first Siberian husky. His name was Axel in 1987. So I was just getting out of high school. I think I was a junior in high school. And I started going to competition obedience trials. And here I was, a young guy who thought he knew everything, in there with, this is no disparagement at all, but with little old ladies with their show dogs in the competition ring. And I was just given the axe, if you know what I mean. I was not treated well because here I was, a young guy with a Siberian. And as you know, Siberians are not the best trained dogs in the world. So anyway, that started my path into dog sports, if you will. I went to college in Portland, Oregon, thinking I was going to be a veterinarian. And about a quarter of the way through, I realized very quickly I did not want to spend all of my time in a vet office. I wanted to be outside. So this was in the early 90s. I started dog training in the parks around Portland with, soccer moms and that sort of thing that were needing their dogs trained. And we did, all of that sort of stuff. I became a certified dog trainer in the early days of certifications way back then. And then about a year or so later, I was at another one of these competition obedience things. And this lady was there with her Siberians. And she says, have you ever been on a dog sled? And I said, no, I haven't. And she says, well, I live in the mountains of Georgia. If you're ever in this neck of the woods, come on down. So being a quick decision-making 20-some-year-old, I jumped in my car, drove down to Georgia, and we hooked up a dog team on a cart as we were talking about the different types of equipment. And we took off through the mountains with an 8-dog team, and I was hooked. I ended up coming home with 2 dogs, 2 Siberians. Their names were Rutger and Reich. And they were really the foundation of my kennel from those early days. In 96, I moved to Duluth, Minnesota, which is kind of a hotbed back in the day of dog mushing, and started there. Fast forward another 4 years-ish or so, I met my wife, Michelle, in Colorado and moved there. We were also dog training there as well. And in 2010, we moved to Alaska. And here we are with 35 dogs, still own a dog training company that's pretty successful. We train service dogs all over the country, all over the world. We just got back from South Korea working with dogs over there. And dogs are literally my life for the last 30 years.
I mean, I can see it, and your passion for dogs really shine through.
Thank
And
you.
and like dogs have been, I've shared with you as well, dogs have been a great part of my life. And like I said, I begged my parents forever and ever, ever until I was 13, and they finally allowed me to get a dog, a golden retriever. And since then, and that's why I started ZippyPaws, is because I wanted to create something that was from me to my own dog, and just share it with the rest of the world as well, to kind of just bring joy to people's life, and make some money while I'm at it too, right? But overall, I just want to create a business for my team of dog lovers here, and just to have a good life and to spread some joy. So it's really nice to hear from you, somebody else who is made dogs their whole life and their livelihood, which is really awesome to hear. And tell us a little bit about how you got into podcasting, because you started really early. When did you start to pick up a microphone and start talking?
Well, the picking up the microphone actually started in college there in Portland. I was in a band at the height of the grunge movement. We thought we were going to be the next Nirvana or Soundgarden or Pearl Jam or something like that. Obviously, that did not work out, but I got my technology chops, if you will, back then. And in 2009, we were dog training at a company called Denver Dog Works. That was the name of our dog training company there. And we had a pretty large training facility that was an old vet office. So it had a lobby, and people were asking us on the typical Saturday group classes, hey, I've got a question about this. Why is my dog jumping? Or why is it have separation anxiety or whatever? And we're answering the same questions over and over and over again. So we set up a couple of really cheap mics in our lobby, and we just brought people in after group class, and we started recording the questions, the Q&As back and forth. And this was very early on in podcasting. We were actually doing a live show on a platform called Blog Talk Radio, where people could call in and chat and do all those sorts of things that are pretty prevalent now. But back then, that was big time tech. Mm-hmm. So we started it then, and we did it every week. To this day, in 2025, we have never missed a week on our podcast. So I don't know how many weeks that is in 16 years or so, but we're keep on going strong. And it took a long time for it to really kick off. I don't think it was till 2017-ish or so that we reached that kind of milestone of the first million downloads. And oh my goodness, everything was awesome and like that. But it has just been a way to reach so many people and tell so many stories. And I don't know how many people have reached out to us and said, hey, I'm in Texas and I heard your podcast about XYZ. Mm-hmm. Would you mind training our dog? We're making a trip up to Alaska. And of course, we figure it out. And we get a lot of clients that way just through our podcast. I think it's a way to reach a public that is not reachable in your local market. And I think it works out pretty good.
Right. Yeah. No, that's super interesting. So they actually trust you enough that they will travel from Texas to Alaska and bring their dog with them just so that you can train their dog.
Well, it is truly the perfect vacation, right? I mean, you can fly up here. The typical Alaska vacation is a week or two. So they'll fly up with their dog and we will do a camp. It's sort of a board and train program. And we will train their dog while they're visiting the state of Alaska. And it works out really well. Yeah. That's sort of our selling point, if you will. Or they can send their dog up. They can take a cruise to Alaska, pick up their dog on their way back because they have to fly home anyway. So that works out real well. But I don't know how many people have said over the years where they'll say, I've listened to, I don't know, 100 episodes of your podcast. I feel like I know you and I know your training style and this and that. And we would love to work with you. And of course, there's dog trainers everywhere in the world. But as you know, there are not dog trainers everywhere in the world that have podcasts. So if you can really reach that audience and really, form a relationship with them, if you will, you can really build up a trust-based relationship, which is very important in dog training or in dog business all over. I'm sure you would agree with that as well.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the reason why I started doing Dog Mom podcast was, initially I started in 2020 with just a few episodes here and there because, we were just, in lockdown, being at home. I wanted like another little creative outlet, right? To kind of share some of the stories. I have more time at home. But now this year, since we've kind of relaunched it, I want to talk to more people in the industry, also bring on my own friends in the industry to talk about like the issues that they are facing when they're running their business. And for me to also share with everybody what I'm going through running my business now, right? Because I'm sure a lot of people are curious about the inner workings of a dog toy company, and I just want to kind of put myself out there, even though it feels unnatural to me. I was never in a band or doing this type of like face-to-face communication, so it is a little scary to me to put myself out there. But I think it is super important for people to get to know us on a personal level. And then this way they trust our intuition and how we run our business, and they can trust that we're doing the best in terms of, creating these dog products so that they can feel comfortable purchasing from us, right? Like we're not a faceless multinational corporation. We're just, a family-owned business, just doing our best here. So that's why I keep on doing the podcast, even though, we're not getting that many views or anything. But like your story really resonates with me. It's all about the consistency, right? It's not about, getting all those views in the beginning, but people want to see that you're consistent and you provide value over a long period of time.
You're doing a great job. I love your set. I would love to be sitting there on the right of you, I guess, on my side, to be in that cool spot. That looks like a very fun spot to do. But yeah, you're right. I think really the take home to this whole thing is whatever you're doing in the dog owning world, trust the people that you find value in. And I think that is key. Whether you're selling dog products as you are, or dog training like we are, or college courses like we teach, or whatever. As they say, our dogs are our family, and they are very important members of our family. And I think if we find a way to really capture that message to our listening or watching public, I think we can truly move mountains, as they say, and really get the message out there for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like it does build a sense of community as well, that you normally wouldn't be getting if you're training, you get a little bit more face to face with your customers. But for us, it's like, you buy from a product from like Target or Walgreens or, Pet Supplies Plus, and then you don't actually get to interact with us. So I'm just hoping with this, they can at least a little bit one-sided, they can hear from us and hear our way of thinking, and hopefully they can interact with us, local events or commenting or something, and then we can kind of like do more of a conversation. But you actually have people calling into your show as well to ask questions on training.
That was way back in the day. When we did, that's an entirely different deal. I guess you could do it now, like on YouTube Live or something like that. People could actually come in and ask questions. I know Riverside and places like that will allow you to do that. But that's a whole another animal when you're bringing in calling in guests and all that, because you never know what they're going to say as they as you hear on old school radio shows where people would call in and ask questions, I can only imagine the questions people could ask on a live show for sure.
Yeah, I know those super chats or something. I see
Yes,
people reading
yes.
super chats, and I think you have to pay or something to send a super chat, and then you can read them. So I'm guessing there's a lot of trolls out there too. I'm sure our
Oh, I'm
competitors
sure.
I'm sure our competitors will love trolling. I'm like, well, we
Right,
welcome it. Come
right,
on, chat with
right.
us. That's awesome. And what other advice do you have for somebody like me that's kind of just starting dip their toes into podcasting? And how have you seen this industry changed over the last 20 years that you've been 15 years?
The industry has changed quite a bit. Obviously, back in the early days, video was not a thing. YouTube has changed everything, and now with Spotify, video and all of those sorts of things. So that is a definite change in the industry. But I know one thing that has not changed, and we'd already talked about a little bit, is just the ability to be one-on-one with your listener, with your client. It is a medium that is unlike anything else in podcasting. And as you know, we are very intimate in how we interact with our listeners. This is one of the few mediums where they have to be present to listen to your podcast. Unlike YouTube or Facebook or whatever, it's kind of a scroll society. They can look at you for 5 seconds and be going on. But if you are invested enough in a podcast for 20 or 30 or 40 or an hour or however long your podcast is, that is a relationship that is different than most other medium. And I think if you can figure out a way to capture that attention and really have good storytelling or good advice or good Q&As or whatever, good interviews, whatever you're doing, I think that is really a way to reach people that is not like anything else out there for sure.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think for me, I am still experimenting on what works the best. I've been doing a lot of interviews because people have been asking to come on and speak with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really great for me to practice my interviewing skills and my conversational skills. You're a stranger. I'm a stranger to you. How do we keep a conversation going for 45 minutes without it sounding awkward or running out of things to talk about? So I think that's been important for me personally to grow as a salesperson as well. And, like you said, like I want to add value, but how do I know what people want from me is I have to keep experimenting with the content that I'm putting out. So I'm doing some interviews. I want to do some more like one-on-one talks, kind of walking people through some of the decisions that we make or something like that. And I can also integrate my team as well. So I'm kind of brainstorming a lot of different options for us to add value through these conversations. And like you said, like the video medium is not something, it's fairly new. And I always have to remind myself to not put on my like resting face. That's a neutral face.
No, that's a great point. And I don't know how many podcasts I've done sitting right here in my PJs. And it is so easy to come up, in your flannel PJs or whatever you're wearing, right? And just hit record on the mic and do with it. But man, when you're on video, it's a whole different animal. You have to have your lighting right, and you have to have, your makeup on or whatever you're doing, right? Hold on, I've got a call here. You got to have everything set. But, I think a key to that, and I know this is sort of the topic of the show, is how we can help other dog moms or people that are interested in venturing out into other medium is try new things. As you said, experiment, whether it be interviews or Q&As. Something that is very important that a lot of people do not think about when they have businesses is do behind the scenes stuff. I think that is really key. As you said, you can interview your team. How does marketing work in a dog treat business or dog toy business? How do the operations work? How does shipping work? All these things that we see on TikTok that are typically only 15 seconds, figure out a way to tell a story about that. And we're talking more to, not necessarily to you, but to other people that are listening that are thinking about, I would really like to get my message out there, but I don't know what way to do that. Find a way that is not being done right now. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, but find a way that is a different angle than everybody else. If you're looking at a dog podcast and everybody's interviewing the same people and they're talking about the same things, or everybody's talking about the same topics, find other topics that people are not talking about, even maybe controversial topics. And that doesn't necessarily need to be so controversial that it's a red flag or a trigger warning, but things that do not get the press that the big topics do. I think that could really help you out when you're thinking about podcasting or videos or blogs or whatever medium you're trying to capture.
Yeah, I agree. It is hard to continuously to find new things to talk about or new angles. And for some of us, we may be a little bit shy in terms of, and we don't know what people want to hear from me. Like I know our story is interesting, but to others, but maybe for me, I'm like, what is so interesting? Like, what can I possibly talk about? And I think the hurdle to that is just our minds kind of keeping us back, and we just have to do it. And even if you don't put it out there or anything, at least you've done it, and then you've tried it, and then you can try other things as well. So for me, that's kind of like my next hurdle is to continuously to try different things and to put myself out there. So you've been doing the podcast for so long. What kind of motivates you to keep going? Like, when do you feel like, does it ever get boring to you? And when it does get boring to you, like, what do you do to kind of just overcome that?
You're right. Finding consistent topics is tough. I was looking at our newest episode. I think we're at like number 1400 or something like that, because we put the numbers on the show tiles every time. And I think mostly we don't repeat topics. Like, we'll talk about, holidays with your pets and things like that every year around Christmas, because those are very important topics, especially how to train a Christmas puppy and things like that. But for the most part, we try to find the newest trends in dog training, because obviously that's our focus or our niche. But as you know, the dog industry, the pet industry has changed over the years. Things are much different in the dog training world from the late 90s, early 2000s, when everything was, there was a lot of designer breeds coming on and clicker training and all of these new things back then. Which what we talked about, that's when Labradoodles came on the scene, and boy, everybody in the world wanted a Labradoodle. So we had to educate people about that. And then different training techniques, like back then, group classes at PetSmart and Petco and things like that were all the rage, and figuring out how we could talk about that to our clients. Are group classes better than private lessons or whatever, going those give and take. But as you said, finding relevant topics is key. We do a lot of those compare and contrast, like private lessons versus group classes, or private lessons versus in-kennel training, or service dog questions, which is a huge topic. We could have an entire shows about service dogs or therapy dogs or anything like that. There are just so many topics out there. On your scope, I guess you could do a lot of mental stimulation, puzzle toys, and all of that sort of stuff you could talk about, and the importance of that in dog ownership and, relationship building and all sorts of things. There are just so many topics that you could reach out and talk to people about, for sure.
Yeah, I think talking about what others are talking about right now is just a way to keep things fresh, because what's happening, you may think it's mundane because it's just part of our normal everyday life, but those are the trends, because they happen and they keep happening and they keep popping up. So I guess you're right. It's like, if you're just talking about the latest things that are happening, you're not going to really repeat topics because the trends are coming and they're going, and then new trends come in and go. So I guess we can talk about kind of like the new trends in pet enrichment, pet toys, things we see in the market, what we see in the market now. So yeah, that's good advice. So I just have to, when I come across these things, I just have to write it down to talk about it.
A mental
Otherwise,
note. Yes.
yes,
Yes.
otherwise then you forget about it and then you're like, oh, I want to do an episode. What do I talk about?
Right.
So speaking of trends in training, what are you seeing in the training world now?
It's still a lot of positive reinforcement, which is great. That's definitely a trend. Gone are the days of sort of that punitive type dog training, which was very prevalent in the 70s and 80s. We just didn't know better. It's the same with raising kids.
Mhm.
Kid raising, if you will, has changed a lot between then and now. My childhood was probably much different than yours. I don't know if good or bad, but you know how it is. But that is one trend for sure. Definitely the way that people understand their dogs is much different now than it was then. Dogs are becoming much more a member of our family than they were then. Like I said, I was just in South Korea. That is an entirely different culture than we have here. There, we were at a shopping mall, and they have entire stores full of very expensive boutique type gear. Like they have carts with air conditioners and all sorts of things in them. And, they dress all their dogs up in fancy little clothes and all of this stuff that is so much different than your typical relationship that we have with our dogs here. Other than that, just the breed trends is always interesting. For many years, the Labrador was the top breed. I don't know, for like a decade. And then all of a sudden, it's the French Bulldog, and the French Bulldog has been the most popular breed in the U.S. for the last couple of years. So that's a definite topic idea for at least a dog training podcast for sure, because a French Bulldog is definitely different in training than a Labrador or a Golden Retriever or a German Shepherd. And just sort of those type of trends is very important. One of the things that we do on our website every day is we showcase a different breed. I think there's 200 or some odd breeds out there, and every day we will write a little post or whatever about each different breed to hopefully educate them on the different types. Like you said, a Greyhound may not do as well in sledding sports as a Siberian or whatever. So just finding ways to really reach that audience is key.
Yeah, and I think people are now starting to understand that finding a dog breed and a specific dog to fit your lifestyle and how the way you live your life is super important. And when I was younger, I loved Goldens because of the way they look. I thought they were the cutest dogs on the planet. And when they're puppies, I mean, forget about it. They're so cute.
Yes.
But is a Golden suitable for my lifestyle? You have to really dig into that and see if it's right for your family. And within the Golden Retriever, there are different types as well, right? And so I think people now have really realized that, right? And they're not just going out to get some dog because of the looks. I mean, hopefully that's hopefully that's the truth. So in your experience, what is the most difficult breed to train?
Oh man. I just read an article today that we've trained about 3,000 dogs over the last 30 years or so. We've probably seen every breed out there imaginable. I know as a Siberian owner for a long time, those guys are very difficult to train. Man, a lot of the toy breeds are very tough just because of their nature, and the way people think about toy dogs. Those thinking about Chihuahuas or Pekingese or Pomeranians or Papillons or any of those type of dogs, they're pretty tough to train. Some of the larger dogs are tough just because they're tough to handle. If you have something like a Great Dane or a big Doberman or a giant Schnauzer or something like that, and you have a small statured person, woman, man, whichever, that could make it difficult. Like you said, do your homework.
Yeah.
Golden Retrievers are excellent dogs. Like we said, they're in the top 5 for many years. But we just answered a question just the other day on a strategy call with a new service dog client. They said, we are dead set on a Golden Retriever. And we said, why? And they said, oh, they're just so beautiful. And we cautioned them and said, well, you're aware that this Golden Retriever takes a considerably bit more work than a Labrador just on the grooming side. You have to take them to be groomed every so often. And here you have a dog that's not only going to be working with you as a service dog, now you have to do something else that you would not have to do with a Labrador Retriever, making sure that they're brushed every day and, their flaring is right and they aren't matted and all of these sorts of things, which a lot of people don't think about. They just see this beautiful Golden Retriever dog and they don't think about, that might be $100 a month grooming bill that I didn't think about. Or, that might be something that is not in the budget for people and they have to think about that. And of course, there's many other dog breeds that fit that bill as well. When you're thinking about grooming, like poodles, or I don't know, just thinking off the top of my head, like any of those dogs that you cut down, like a Schnauzer or a Pointer, or any of those dogs that require grooming that other dogs do not.
Yes. We have a golden doodle and he just, every few months you gotta take him, and now he's older. He can't really go to the groomers. We shave him down every maybe like 4 or 5 months just to keep it down and he doesn't get matted. And when he is matted, all you can do is cut the whole thing off, right? And then he's bald for 2 weeks until it kind of starts growing in. And then we got our Dalmatian, and she is like the most carefree dog. Like, I don't need to give her a bath or anything. Her coat is nice. I mean, she sheds a little bit, but I don't need to give her a bath ever. I don't need to brush her ever. And obviously she was very difficult when she was a puppy because of that Dalmatian. Like, she did not trust us. And you have to think about, like for a Golden Retriever, they're just so happy, loving. They'll try to please you because they want to please everybody. But with her, the Dalmatian, she just did not care that we were her owners. And, I tell her to do this and just did not care and did not trust us and did not care to trust us. But now she's, after lots and lots of hours of training, she's great and no grooming. So
yeah.
Yeah,
so we have a Dalmatian in training right now here in the house. And they're pretty uncommon, as you probably know. You don't see Dalmatians like we used to. That was and I see on your board there, the Dalmatian on your, on your board, a few of them on your, I forget what they call that type of board.
These are all are my employees, past and present, their dogs. So
very cool.
Yeah. So we just kind of add them and work it into our illustration as well.
I love it. Yeah. But do you, like you said, do your homework, whether you're going the Dalmatian route or the Golden Retriever or the Golden Doodle or Siberian or sled dog or whatever. Buy a dog that fits your lifestyle. Be able to dedicate time to that dog, not only for exercise and training, but every other thing, because as you say, they are a part of your life, and they make our lives whole for sure. And that's the important part of that for sure.
Yeah, and the first year, you definitely do have to dedicate a lot of time. Once you're past the first year and the foundations are set, then you have a great dog for rest of their life. So
I hope so. Yeah.
I feel like sometimes my dog has a little bit of a regression. So I'm like, then we have to crack down on the training a little bit more for a couple of weeks. And then she's like, oh, okay, I can't get away with all that.
Just like with kids, right?
I know.
Like when we were kids, yes, we had to have a little bit of refresher here and there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a battle with my dogs and my toddlers. So they're always trying to push the boundaries. And, we're just struggling to keep the boundaries in place every single day. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation and the advice that you've given me and given all of us. So hopefully we can make a trip to Alaska. I've never been, so I'd love to make a trip to Alaska and, go dog mushing. That sounds awesome.
For sure. Well, thank you for having me on, and look forward to our continued conversation.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.